صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. صلوات. ابھی آتی ہے سکینہ کی صدائے لوگو، ہائے زندانوں سے ابھی آتی ہے سکینہ کی صدائے لوگو، ہائے زندانوں سے میرے بابا کو ملا دو، میں دعائیں دوں گی، سسکیاں لے کہ جو کہتی تھی مسلمانوں سے ابھی آتی ہے سکینہ کی صدائے لوگو، ہائے زندانوں سے بولے سجاد سکینہ یہ مقدر تیرا، بولے سجاد سکینہ یہ مقدر تیرا، بے کفن تجھ کو لیے پھرتا ہوں بازاروں میں، او لہوا جی بھی جاری ہے تیرے کانوں سے ابھی آتی ہے سکینہ کی صدائے لوگو، ہائے زندانوں سے ابھی آتی ہے سکینہ کی صدائے لوگو، ہائے زندانوں سے جا کے مقتل میں پکاری یہ سکینہ رو کر، جا کے مقتل میں پکاری یہ سکینہ رو کر، بھیا قاسم میرے اکبر تم کہاں ہو سارے، میرے بابا کو بچا لو آ کے شیطانوں سے ابھی آتی ہے سکینہ کی صدائے لوگو، ہائے زندانوں سے لب دریا سے علمدار کی آئی یہ صدا، لب دریا سے علمدار کی آئی یہ صدا، اے سکینہ تجھ سے شرمندہ ہے چاچا تیرا، پانی پہنچا نہ سکا ہائے کٹے شانوں سے ابھی آتی ہے سکینہ کی صدائے لوگو، ہائے زندانوں سے صلوات. پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات. آ کے رسیوں سے سکینہ کو چھڑا لو بابا، آ کے رسیوں سے سکینہ کو چھڑا لو بابا. میں ہوں مشکل میں مجھے پاس بلا لو بابا ہے. آ کے رسیوں سے سکینہ کو چھڑا لو بابا. باغتے اونٹ سے ابا میں کہیں بار گری، دور بھی چھینے میرے دیکھو میری پوشاک جلی. مجھ کو زندہ کے اندھیروں سے نکالو بابا ہے. آ کے رسیوں سے سکینہ کو چھڑا لو بابا. نیند آتی نہیں سونے سے بھی ڈر لگتا ہے، لوں جو کروٹ تو میرے کانوں سے خون رستا ہے. اپنے سینے پہ گڑی پل کو سلا لو بابا ہے. آ کے رسیوں سے سکینہ کو چھڑا لو بابا. شمر سے مانگو جو پانی تو جھڑک دیتا ہے، پھر میرے سامنے مٹی پہ گرا دیتا ہے. بیج کے غازی کو دو بوند منگا لو بابا ہے. آ کے رسیوں سے سکینہ کو چھڑا لو بابا. تیرے قاتل مجھے رونے سے منع کرتے ہیں، جب بھی روتی ہوں تو عابد پہ ستم کرتے ہیں. کھل کے رو لوں مجھے نیزے پہ اٹھا لو بابا ہے. آ کے رسیوں سے سکینہ کو چھڑا لو بابا. نہ کوئی مجھ کو بلاتا ہے سکینہ کہہ کے، شام کے لوگ بلاتے ہیں یتیمہ کہہ کے. ٹھوکریں کھاتی سکینہ کو سنبھالو بابا ہے. آ کے رسیوں سے سکینہ کو چھڑا لو بابا. بال کھینچے ہیں میرے رخ پہ تماچے مارے، دیکھ کے غازی کے سر کو رہے ہنستے سارے. ہے ذرا اپنا، ہے ذرا اپنا وفادار جگا لو بابا. ہے آ کے رسیوں سے سکینہ کو چھڑا لو بابا. نیند آتی نہیں، سونے سے بھی ڈر لگتا ہے، لوں جو کروٹ تو میرے کانوں سے خورستا ہے. اپنے سینے پہ، اپنے سینے پہ گڑی پل کو سلا لو بابا. ہے آ کے رسیوں سے سکینہ کو چھڑا لو بابا. بھاگتے اونٹ سے بابا میں کئی بار گری، دور بھی چھینے میرے دیکھو میری پوشاک جلی. مجھ کو زندہ کے، مجھ کو زندہ کے اندھیروں سے نکالو بابا. ہے آ کے رسیوں سے سکینہ کو چھڑا لو بابا. بال کھینچے ہیں میرے رخ پہ تماچے مارے، دیکھ کے غازی کے سر کو رہے ہنستے سارے. ہے ذرا اپنا، ہے ذرا اپنا وفادار جگا لو بابا. ہے آ کے رسیوں سے سکینہ کو چھڑا لو بابا. آ کے رسیوں سے سکینہ کو چھڑا لو. سورہ مبارکۃ الفاتحہ.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you welcome Brother Mikhail Qasim, please, to the podium? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Salawat. Assalamu alaikum. Let us all offer our condolences to our living Imam alayhi salam on the martyrdom of Bibi Sakina alayhi salam. Tonight, our topic of discussion is Bibi Sakina bint al-Hussein, alayhim as-salam, who in the Arab world is known as Sayeda Rukaya bint al-Hussein, alayhim as-salam. Bibi Sakina was 3.5 years old when she left Medina for the last time, and when she arrived in Karbala, she was 4 years old. Immediately after Karbala, in the month of Safar, she died in the dungeons of Damascus. First of all, let me introduce Bibi Sakina. Her mother was Bibi Rabah binti Imr ibn Qais, who was a Christian before from a noble family and was a poet of great repute. At the time of the second caliph, he came to Medina and he was introduced to Islam and converted to it. After his conversion to Islam, he was made the governor of a province next to Sham called Al-Qadda. Bibi Sakina's genealogy from her father's side does not need any introduction. I apologize to the Holy Prophet and Imams if I don't invoke Allah's peace and blessings after their names due to constraint of time. Let me start with her ancestor, Hazrat Abu Talib, as there's no need to go beyond that. Otherwise, I'll end up with Prophet Adam alayhi salam. Hazrat Abu Talib was the custodian of the Kaaba, and his wife Bibi Fatima binti Asad, for whom the Kaaba split. Then the leader of all the prophets, and his wife al-Mu'mineen wal-Mu'minat. And then Amir al-Mu'mineen, and his wife Sayeda Nisa al-Alameen. And then the two leaders of the youth of paradise. Then her brother Sayyid al-Sajideen. And then al-Baqir, the one who split the knowledge of all prophets. She is an aunt to 7 of our Imams, including the Imam of our time, Imam Zamana alayhi salam. She is in the cradle of Nabuwa and Imama, and let us not forget her little baby brother, who is Bab al-Hawaij. Tonight, if we're going to sit here and listen to nothing but her masiba, we're not doing justice to this great lofty Bibi. First of all, let me tell you how much Imam Hussein loved Bibi Sakina and her mother. He wrote a poem saying that he loves the house in which Sakina and Rabab dwell so much that he would give all of his wealth for it. If we're going to talk about her masayib, then I don't know which masayib to pick. Should I talk about how she pleaded her father to let Hazrat Abbas get water for her brother, after which he never came back? Should I talk about how she clung to the 4 legs of Zuljana, not allowing him to move forwards? Should I talk about the atrocities that she suffered during Sham al-Ghariba? Should I talk about the atrocities that she saw in the market of Damascus whilst waiting for Yazid in the court? Because of constraint of time, I'll just recite one masayib that we should all remember, just before her death in the prison of Sham. This masayib is that when the caravan was brought in front of Yazid, there was about 700 people in attendance. Bibi Sakina caught the eye of Yazid because she was muttering something in a very feeble voice. She was also raising her legs extremely high when she was standing. Yazid asked Shimr who that girl was, and Shimr said that was the most beloved daughter of Hussein ibn Ali. Yazid then asked Shimr why she was lifting her legs up so high when she was standing. Shimr then said that he tied all the women together with a single rope, and Bibi Sakina was the shortest person, so when a tall lady lifted her head when a tall lady lifted her head, she would get strangulated, so she would have to lift her legs just to relieve the pain. Yazid then asked Shimr if she knew what she was groaning, and Shimr said yes. She was saying, "I can't breathe, let me breathe." Yazid ordered Shimr to loosen the noose on her neck. As Shimr approached her, she put her hand out and shouted at Shimr and said, "Stop! Don't you dare touch me!" A little girl who is not yet baligha is teaching the so-called Amir al-Mu'mineen that a non-mahram cannot be touched. This is the most important message of Bibi Sakina. But are we following this message? No! Yet we cry to Bibi Sakina for help. After this, Yazid told Shimr to open the handcuffs on Imam Sajjad so he could loosen the noose on her neck. When she was free, Yazid called her to him. He said, "Your father used to love you a lot, didn't he?" Bibi Sakina nodded. "He used to bring you dates." Bibi Sakina nodded again. "Do you want dates?" Bibi Sakina looked at Imam Sajjad, and he nodded at her. Yazid said that there was a covered tray by his feet. He told her to lift up the cloth and there'd be lots of dates. But when she went to lift up the cloth, instead of dates, it was the severed head of her father, Imam Hussein alayhi salam. The feeble voice should have vibrated all over the Shia world. Recently, the phrase was made famous by George Floyd, and Black Lives Matter has been turned into a movement. According to the New York Times, over 70 African American people used the phrase, "I can't breathe," before dying to police custody in 2004. But all of those names are forgotten because they were crying that phrase for their protection. But here, Bibi Sakina is saying that she can't breathe for our salvation. By the way, Black Lives Matter is also connected to Bibi Sakina, because in Islam, Black Lives mattered from her great-great-grandmother, Bibi Hajara, who was an African slave. Does Bibi Sakina want us to cry for her after 1400 years? No, because there's nothing that we can do about it. She's saying, look at the Sakina of today. Her nephew said that every day is Ashura and every land is Karbala. There is a Yazid of the time and there's a Sakina of the time. We're forgetting that. There's a purpose as to why she faced all of these trials and tribulations. For our salvation, not hers. But we didn't capitalize on that. Just to give a recent example, after the Taliban have come into power, there is a third biggest ethnic minority in Afghanistan called Hazara. These people are all lovers of Ahlul Bayt. There is an area in Afghanistan called Herat where most of them are Shias fleeing their country and emigrating as refugees to Pakistan. Not as if they're welcome there anyway. Shias are being slaughtered all over the world. Nothing has changed since 1400 years ago. Nothing has changed. When Imam Hussein was killed and beheaded, there was a cry of takbir. Now Shias are being slaughtered with the call of takbir. Nothing has changed. Bibi Sakina is crying, so we don't have to cry for her. She said, where are the Shias of my father? My father sent you salutations through my brother. We have not replied to his salutations, which is wajib upon us. We're only giving a lip service to our Imam by saying, Labayk ya Hussein. Oppression has got three players. One is the oppressor, one is the oppressed, and one is the bystander. Bibi Sakina is telling us that we are the bystanders and she is the oppressed. She's also telling us that her father was oppressed, but he rose. Her father got up to fight the oppression, and that's politics. Islam is two-dimensional. One is deen and one is politics. We recite daily to Imam Hussein's companions in Ziyarat al-Waritha. We recite that we wish we were there at Karbala. But we're not doing what they want us to do. They want us to find the Husseins and Sakinas of today. Let me turn back to the court of Yazid. A Syrian man in the crowd was impressed by Bibi Sakina's boldness and told Yazid, I hear you're a generous man. I want you to give me this girl. Bibi Sakina immediately looked at Imam Sajjad, who looked at her and said, don't worry, I'm your Imam. This will not happen in my lifetime. Imam Sajjad turned to the man and said, what will you do, O Sheikh, with such a weak, feeble, bleeding child? She will have no strength to work. The Syrian replied, O prisoner, I don't want to make her work. So what do you want to do with her? Oh, I'll take her home, I'll feed her properly, I'll give her medications to make her well, I'll dress her in nice clothes, and I'll put a veil over her. Then what will you do? I'll gift her to my Imam, because she's a courageous girl. Who is your Imam? My Imam is Hussein ibn Ali in Medina. At that point, Imam Sajjad pointed towards the severed head of Imam Hussein and said, Hada Rasil Hussein, Ana ibn al-Hussein, Hada hi bint al-Hussein. The man grabbed the sword of the soldier next to him and lunged toward Yazid to kill him, but he was killed on the spot for the love of Ahlul Bayt. So what do? Do we go home and be satisfied because we listened to a Majlis and cried over Bibi Sakina? No. Now, let me take you back to the last few hours of Bibi Sakina's life. There was a commotion in the middle of the night. All of the Bibis are crying because Bibi Sakina had dreamt about her father. Yazid could hear the crying and sent his servant down to check what had happened. He checked and told Yazid that Bibi Sakina was crying because she had a dream about her father. Yazid ordered the servant to bring the head of Imam Hussein to the prison. When Bibi Sakina saw the head, she put her head on her father's head and started sobbing uncontrollably. She said, Baba, Baba, look at me. Look at what they've done to your daughter. Look at your 4-year-old daughter. My back is bent and I need a stick to walk. Baba, who colored your beard red? Bibi Sakina put her head on her father's severed head and started crying again. But then suddenly she stopped. Imam Zain al-Abidin said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bihaqi Bibi Sakina alayhi salam. He should give us tawfiq, a chance to change, and find the Sakinas of today and guide us on the right path. Salawat.
Thank you, Brother Mikhail, for this touching speech. Can we now invite Brother Muhammad Mehdi to recite Quran for 5 minutes, please? صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. كافها يا عين صاد. ذكر رحمة ربك عبده زكريا إذ نادى ربه نداء خفيا إذ نادى ربه نداء خفيا قال رب إني وهن العظم مني واشتعل الرأس شيبا ولم أكن بدعائك رب شقيا وإني خفت الموالي من ورائي وإني خفت الموالي من ورائي وكانت امرأتي عاقرا فهب لي من لدنك وليا يرثني ويرث من آل يعقوب واجعله رب رضيا يا زكريا إنا نبشرك بغلام اسمه يا زكريا إنا نبشرك بغلام اسمه يحيى لم نجعل له من قبل سميا قال رب أنى يكون لي غلام قال رب أنى يكون لي غلام وكانت امرأتي عاقرا وقد بلغت من الكبر عتيا قال كذلك قال ربك هو علي هين وقد خلقتك من قبل ولم تك شيئا قال كذلك قال ربك هو علي حين وقد خلقتك هو علي هين وقد خلقتك من قبل ولم تك شيئا قال رب اجعل لي آية قال آيتك ألا تكلم الناس ثلاث ليال سويا صدق الله العلي العظيم. الفاتحة.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight's program is sponsored by Simin and NCR Dawood Bhai, Tahira Mastan, the Khimani family, Murtaza and Minaz Jan Muhammad, the Hassan family, Nida Zahra, and the Tabarruk donors. Please recite Surah Fatiha for marhumins of the families, the names displayed on the screen, and all marhumins. Suratul Fatiha. The Jamaat is grateful to our youths for displaying the amazing model of the date of Bibi Sakina as in Sham prison. Thank you. May Allah reward them. Let us recite a loud salawat for them. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Please don't forget to donate either at the box provided here in front. You can donate at either desk or on Hyderi website. Can we now invite Sheikh Mustafa Masood to the member? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة. غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء. يا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، عن الإمام صاحب العصر والزمان في زيارة الناحية، وهو يقول: السلام على الشيب الخضيب، السلام على الخد التريب، السلام على الرأس المرفوع. أفضل الصلوات على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ليس الصلوات على أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب عليه السلام. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. declare salawat for the hastening of the reappearance of the awaited Savior. The lines that I recite from Ziyarat al-Nahiya al-Muqaddasa are the famous lines of the awaited Savior al-Mahdi Ajalallah Ta'ala Farajahu al-Sharif when he addresses his grandfather, his great-grandfather, Abi Abdullah al-Hussein, in that famous ziyarah known as Ziyarat al-Nahiya. In that ziyarah, he says to his grandfather, Assalamu ala shayb al-khadib. Peace be upon the grey hair that was stained or dyed with blood. Assalamu ala al-khadd al-tarib. Peace be upon that face that was struck we all know that after the beheading of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, his head was placed on a spear and it was paraded from Karbala towards Kufa and later on towards Sham. But many question where was the actual burial site of the head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam? And where was this holy head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam taken? And what was the journey that was taken of the holy head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam from Karbala to Kufa, later on to Sham, and where was it buried? Because today when you look at many narrations, including those that are found in the books of Ahl Sunnah, you find that they say, for example, the head was buried in Medina. Others say, no, the head is buried in Cairo. Today, if you go to Cairo, you go to this area that is named after Imam Hussein alayhi salam, you will notice that there is a grand mosque. That mosque is known as Masjid al-Hussein or Masjid Rasul Hussein alayhi salam. You go into that mosque and you find a darih. And if you ask anyone, what is this darih? They say this is the site of the burial of the head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. And if you go, for example, in the month of Sha'ban, the 3rd of Sha'ban specifically, you will notice the Egyptians celebrating the birth of Imam al-Hussein on that day. Till today, alhamdulillah, we notice the love of our brothers, Ahl Sunnah, for Imam Hussein alayhi salam when you go towards Egypt. Others say no, the head of Abu Abdullah Hussein alayhi salam was buried where? Was buried in Damascus, in Sham. That area known as Bab al-Saghir. When you go to Sham, when you go to Damascus, you visit that area, you will also find a grand mosque. You find a darih there, and you are told what? That the heads were buried in this area, in Sham. Others say no. The head of Abu Abdullah Hussein was buried with his body in Karbala, and it was returned to Karbala with the body. And there is also narrations within the Shia scholars and Shia historians that say no. The head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, the holy head of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, is actually buried in the holy city of Najaf. And in fact, it's buried next to the grave of his father, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Therefore, today, inshallah, I want to examine where is the actual head buried. What do our scholars say when it comes to the burial site of the holy head of our Imam alayhi salam? And what was the journey that the head took from Karbala towards Kufa, towards Sham? And did this holy head converse with anyone? Did anyone meet this head?
Did a Christian monk come to see this holy head? And what was the effect of the people when they saw the holy head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam? Until this holy head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein was brought into the lap of a 4-year-old daughter of Hussein alayhi salam, who throughout this journey was asking about her father Hussein alayhi salam. Let's examine the holy head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, inshallah, in the next few minutes. When it comes to the actual burial of Imam al-Hussein alayhi afdalus salatu wasalam, we are told that the body of Imam al-Hussein was buried on what? On the 13th of the holy month of Muharram, when Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam returned from Kufa to Sham, to Karbala, to bury the body of his father, his companions, and his family members. We are told that an imam has to bury another imam. And we have this in all our narrations. For example, Imam al-Rada alayhi salam is asked, how are you going to be buried by another imam when your son, who's the imam, is in Medina while you are in Khurasan? The Imam responds, he says the exact same way how Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam buried his father, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. An Imam has to bury another Imam. Imam al-Sajjad on the 13th of the holy month of Muharram, 3 days after his father's body laid there on the plains of Karbala, goes towards Karbala, buries his father. He comes towards Karbala, he sees some of the Banu Asad. The tribe of Banu Asad were probably the first residents of Karbala before the events of Karbala. He sees them, they're waiting, they are confused as to how they are going to bury these bodies. And who does this body, for example, belong to? Who does this body belong to? There are body parts that are missing from some of these bodies. Imam Sajjad comes to them and he tells them that, would you help me? First he asks them, why are you here? They say, we saw the bodies here, so we wanted to bury them. Imam Sajjad says, I will help you bury them. First he asks them to dig a big grave in which he puts their companions of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Then he asks for a second grave in which he puts Hazrat Habib ibn Madahir al-Asadi in that grave. Then he says there is another, for them to dig another grave. When they dig this grave, he tells them, no, I do not need your help. I do not seek your help in the burial of this person. They say, why? He says, because I have his family members burying him. That's why we have in some narrations, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, and Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam were there to bury Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. He buries the body of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Then he buries Ali al-Akbar by the feet of the Imam. Then there is a sound, the voice of his father from his throat, that says, Bunay Ali, my son Ali, bury or place my Ali al-Asghar on my chest. He places Ali al-Asghar on the chest of the Imam and he buries his father. Then he goes to bury his uncle, Abu al-Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. This is the burial of the body. What about the heads? Let us not forget that it wasn't just Imam al-Hussein who had his head decapitated from his body. All the other companions, as well as the family members that were killed on the day of Ashura, after the battle, their heads were decapitated. Except that there's a difference between them and Imam al-Hussein. What's the difference? The difference is that their heads were decapitated after their death, after their martyrdom. Why do I say this? If you decapitate someone's body after their death, are they going to be in physical harm? Someone's died. Someone comes and decapitates their body. Will they feel anything? No. Correct? Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, his head was decapitated while he was alive. That's how he... I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical person, but Shimr al-La'in, when he decapitated the head of the Mawla, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, he turned him around and he decapitated him from the back. You know, in fiqh, you are told to decapitate the animal from the front until the 4 jugular veins are cut. Why? They say because the animal does not go through pain. Yes? Imam alayhi salam, Shimr al-La'in, put him on his back. Then he decapitated his head. So the Imam had to endure that pain. Allahu Akbar. When it comes to the actual beheading of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, tonight, I know that the actual topic of the head of Imam al-Hussein is very emotional, but it's an emotional night. It's the night of Bibi Sakina. Take your hearts towards Sham from the beginning of the lecture. You know, usually we have the masa'ib at the end. No, tonight's majlis is all masa'ib. It's the masa'ib of that 4-year-old daughter, from the beginning to the end. You know, usually, again, I share this with you. I don't usually like doing the majlis of Bibi Sakina. Usually if I get invited for that majlis, I try to decline that majlis. Because I have daughters as well. And I know the pain of a father when it comes to his daughter being hurt or harmed. And I know that relationship between a daughter and a father. May Allah give us all patience, inshallah, if we ever face a problem like Bibi Sakina faced that problem. When it comes to the beheading of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, we are told that there are different narrations to who actually beheaded the Imam. If you look at Arbabul Maqatil, the narrators of the Maqatil, they give 3 different names. The most obvious one is who? Shimr ibn Dil Jawshan. Correct? We all know Shimr. Others say no, it was Sinan. Another name that sometimes you hear on the Mambar, during Masiba you hear the name Sinan. Some say it was Sinan. Others say no, it was Khawli. Of course, as I mentioned, the most narrations, they point towards who? Shimr. Yet other narrations say no, all 3 participated in his killing, in the killing of Imam al-Hussein. What do I mean? I mean, they say, for example, it was Shimr that actually killed the Imam, ended his life, his holy life. It was Sinan that actually what? Beheaded the Imam. And it was Khawli that actually placed the head of the Imam on a spear. Therefore, they all participated in one way or the other. Even, for example, when you hear the maqtal of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, you hear, for example, when Imam, and this breaks the heart, when the Imam is lying there in his final moments, and Sayeda Zainab alayhi salam comes out of her tent, and she looks at Umar ibn Sa'd, and she tells him, "Ayuqtalu Abu Abdullah? Is Abu Abdullah about to be killed and you are watching?" In which we are told Umar ibn Sa'd turns around from her, and he starts to cry. Then he says a famous line. This hurts the hearts of the mu'mineen. He says, "Inzulu ilayh wa arihuh." I'll translate. Go down towards him and make him rest. Why make him rest? How are you going to make him rest? Why does this line hurt? The Imam was going through so much pain that death was rest for him. انزلوا إليه. Umar ibn Sa'd says, انزلوا إليه وأريحوه. Allahu Akbar. And that's when Shimr al-La'in is the first one. There are some narrations that say Sinan goes forward, but he can't kill the Imam. Shimr goes down, kicks the body of the Imam, and then sits on his holy chest. Khawli or Khawla takes the head of the Imam and puts it on a spear. And this is the way of the Umayyads, to put a head of someone who is their enemy on a spear and parade it. And then Umar ibn Sa'd says to his army members, go and decapitate the rest of the heads. For example, Harmala, we all know Harmala and have heard of Harmala. He's the one with the arrows. Harmala, whose head did he carry? He carried the head of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. Except the head of Abu al-Fadl was not put on a spear. Where was it put? Harmala put a string around the horse's head. Then he placed Abbas's head on that string. Why? So whenever the horse's head would go down, the head of Abbas would hit the ground. Then, and they took these heads, why? As trophies. You know, after you win something, they give you a trophy, right? They took these heads as their trophies to say that this is our certificate to what we did. We're going to parade these heads. Then, again, I apologize that this whole majlis is masa'ib. Then Shimr says to the enemy members, there was a baby of Imam al-Hussein. Where is the baby? Ali Asghar is the only martyr of Karbala that was buried in Karbala by Imam al-Hussein. After he returned with Ali al-Asghar, he dug a hole, narrations of the Maqtal say, with his sword. It doesn't need a big grave, so more small baby. With his sword, he dug into the soil of Karbala. Then he placed Ali al-Asghar in his blood. He placed him and he put the dust on top. Shimr after the battle said, where is that 6 months infant baby of Hussein? They said, why? He said, I want its head. They said to Shimr that we saw Hussein go behind his tent and bury his 6 months infant. What does Shimr do? Shimr brings a spear and he starts putting the spear into the sand of Karbala until he brings the spear out and it has the 6 months infant. And he decapitates the head. Then the head, may Allah bless all your children. The head of this baby is small. The spear is too big. They bring, I haven't gone into Masa'ib, please. Even though maybe you can turn it off. Because you know what? In Kharabat al-Sham it was dark. So let's have this majlis dark tonight. They bring the head of Ali al-Asghar and they put it on a smaller arrow. They can't put it on a spear. They take these heads and they go towards Kufa to parade them. When they reach Kufa, again, we're doing the journey of the head of who? Mawla Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. When they bring the head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, when they arrive to Kufa, it's what? It's evening time. Ibn Ziyad says, he says, we cannot parade the heads now because most of the people are at home. It's night time. We want everyone to see. It's a festival. We want everyone together. Let's wait till the morning and we parade the heads in the morning. Where do they take the head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein? Khawli says, I will take the head. Where does he take the head? He takes the head to his house. Where does he place the head? He places the head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein in his oven, clay oven. Have you seen those clay ovens they make bread in? he places the head of Abu Abdullah in that oven. His wife comes out in the middle of the night. She sees a nur, a light from the heavens, from the skies towards the clay oven, towards this clay oven. She thinks, what's going on? Why is there a light? Later on, she's asked. She comes to her husband. She says, what's this? What's in the oven? He tells her, the head of Hussein. She says, the head of the grandson of Rasulullah? He says, yes. She says, how dare you? Later on, she is asked about this scene. She says, by Allah, it was angels visiting the head of the Mawla, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Takes the head. The next morning, the heads are paraded now. You have the heads, for example, of the companions, Habib ibn Madahir, Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, Muslim ibn Awsaja. And you have the heads, for example, of Ali al-Akbar, Al-Qasim, Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, and the holy head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein on a spear. They bring the head of towards Ibn Ziyad. He starts poking the eyes of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Then there's a message from Yazid, a messenger from Yazid. Send me the head. I want to see the heads. And make sure that they are paraded from Kufa all the way towards Sham. Make sure that they stop at different locations. That's why some scholars say there's a difference of opinions when it comes to the burial, because the head is buried, the head goes through many stages and many stops known as maqamat. These maqams are what? Are a place or situation or a location, where the head was placed for a day or two. Later on, some people came and said, no, this is not a maqam. This is what? A burial location. But it's really just a maqam. Masjid al-Hannana, may Allah grant us the ziyarat of the holy city of Najaf. When you go to Masjid al-Hannana, you are told what? This is where the head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein was kept before where? Before it went towards Kufa. That's one location. Some maybe later on come and say that no. In Masjid al-Hannana is the head of Imam al-Hussein. That's where the burial site is. That's a very unreliable narration. We say no, this is a place, a location where it stayed overnight. Then they take the heads towards where? Towards Sham. And we are told that the head of Imam al-Hussein stops at approximately 25 different locations. The likes of, for example, Raqqa, the likes of Halab, the likes of Tikrit. These locations, certain incidents take place. I'll mention a few. The first that I will mention is that of Halab. In Halab, there is a Christian monk that sees the holy head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. He comes and he looks at the head. He notices that there is something special about this head. It's not of someone normal. He can see, obviously, from the features of Abu Abdullah that this person is someone that is holy. He comes towards Umar ibn Sa'd and he says, I will pay you whatever money you want for me to keep this head. They say, no, we're taking this head towards Yazid. He says, very well, let me keep it for one night and I'll give you whatever money you want and you can stay as my guest. They say, very well, take the head. He goes towards Khawli, pays him some money, and he takes the head of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And there are many different narrations about what conversation takes place. Conversation. This is one of the karamat of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. This is one karam. That he has a conversation with this Christian monk who later on there's two different stories. Either he draws the head of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, or he employs someone, an artist, to draw the head of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. This is one incident. A second incident is that as they're going towards Sham, sometimes they take breaks. where they need to eat, drink some water, feed their horses, quench the thirst of their horses. What do? They don't carry the spear. They place the spear in the sand, in the ground, and they hold the spear in the ground and they take a break. The spear stays standing there. In one incident, Khawli took a break. He came back to pick the spear up. The spear wouldn't move. He tries to pull the spear wouldn't move. He calls others like Shimir and others to try and take the spear out of the ground. It wouldn't move. They want to make a move. They can't move without the head of Imam al-Hussein. They say, go and ask Imam al-Sajjad. Between them, they say, let's go and ask his son, Ali ibn al-Hussein, why is the head stuck? Why is it not moving? They go to Imam al-Sajjad, alayhi afdal salatu wasalam. They ask him, why is the head stuck and not moving? The spear is not moving. Imam al-Sajjad says, because one of the daughters of Hussein is missing. They say, okay, very well. How can we find this daughter of Hussein? Imam al-Sajjad says, look at the eyes of my father. Whichever direction it looks at, know that his daughter is there. They look towards the directions of the eyes of Imam al-Hussein. He's looking towards one side. Huh? The caring father. Any caring father for his son or for his daughter, if they go missing, he can feel it in his heart. Have you noticed sometimes if you go through a rough patch or you have an accident or something bad happens to you, as soon as you go home, your mother or your father says to you, I had a feeling something bad happened to you. I felt it in my heart before I knew. This is Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. They go look towards the direction of where his eyes are looking, and they bring one of his daughters. She's lost, they bring her back. When they bring her back, they take the spear out and they continue walking. He was worried what? About one of his daughters who was, in some cases, Sakina. Others say, no, it's another daughter. And this is why, again, I should mention this. This is why we have a confusion when it comes to, or not confusion, I shouldn't use this word. Why sometimes we have different narrations to the name of Bibi Sakina. For example, in my community, we call her Rukaya. In other communities, Sakina. Other ones, no, Sukaina. Why is there sometimes different narrations? It doesn't, by the way, take away from the story. The same story, if you look at it, whether it's Rukaya, Sakina, or Sukaina, it's the same story. But we say because the daughters of Imam al-Hussein were named all what? Fatima. He said, I will name all my daughters Fatima. And I name all my sons what? Ali. Because of my father, Ali. He says, if I had 1,000 sons, I will call them Ali. And that's why you have Ali al-Sajjad, Ali al-Akbar, Ali al-Asghar, Ali al-Awsat. We have other Alis as well. And all his daughters Fatima. What's then Sukaina, Sakina, Rukaya? These are their titles. There is sometimes different narrations because maybe someone doesn't know which daughter of Hussein it is, so he'll say Sakina. Maybe it's not, it's Sukaina, because they've never seen their faces before Karbala. Before Sham, these daughters of Hussein were never seen in public. Correct? They were always in full hijab. So that's why there's different narrations. Otherwise, it doesn't take away from the story. Whether she is called Sukaina, Sakina, or Rukaya, it doesn't take away from the story. So they continue walking. The third incident that is one of the karamat of Imam al-Hussein, the head of Imam al-Hussein, is that the head of Imam al-Hussein recites Quran, verses from the Quran. What verses? The head of Imam al-Hussein recites the verses from Surah Al-Kahf, from the chapter known as the chapter of the cave. And these verses, subhanallah, many of them, they are embodied by Imam al-Hussein. And by who? By the companions of Imam al-Hussein. Just like those people of the cave who what? Who dedicated themselves for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even the verses that he was reciting were not just random verses. He was reciting from Surah Al-Kahf until they get to where? They get to Sham. When they get to Sham, Yazid finds out, a messenger goes in before them and says the camp, the caravan of the women is outside Damascus, outside Babu Sa'a, as it's known. If you go today to an area known as Bab Tuma in Damascus today, there's an area known as Bab Tuma. Christians live there today. That is the door in which they entered Damascus, Sham. Yazid says that, oh, they've come quite early. I haven't decorated the city. I haven't put zina up. You know, in Khushalis we put decorations up in our centers, yes? For what? For happy anniversaries, for happy occasions. He says, I haven't decorated the city. Let them wait. Let me decorate the city. How long do they have to wait? Some narrations mention they waited 3 days outside in that heat of the sun. So much so that I came across a narration from Imam al-Sajjad that says, I saw the skin of the daughters of Amir al-Mu'mineen peel off. Their skins was peeling off from their faces because of how long they waited outside. Also, as they are waiting, Kulthum comes to Imam al-Sajjad. She tells him, I have a request for you. What's your request? Let's ask Shimr and the enemies to remove the heads forward, not place the heads next to the women. Why? One, because every time I raise my head, I see the beloved Abbas. I see my beloved Hussein. I see my beloved Ali al-Akbar. It brings pain to my heart. I don't want to see their heads every few moments. Right? It's difficult for anyone to see the head of their beloved person on a spear. And two, if we move them away from us, then the strangers of Sham, the people of Sham, will stop looking at our faces and they will look at the heads. It will distract them from looking at us. For by Allah, we feel ashamed from the glances and the looks that we have been receiving. 3 days. Then the doors are opened. How are the daughters of Amir al-Mu'mineen welcomed in Sham? They are pelted with stones. Bibi Zainab or Bibi Kulthum actually says, she says, I saw people from the top of their homes and houses bring boiling water, and throw it on the head of Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam. The daughters of Amir al-Mu'mineen pelted with stones. People would come and poke them with their sticks. Khawarij, they would say. Again, this parading of the heads was something that was started by Muawiyah. The first head to be put on a spear in Islamic history was the head of someone by the name of Amr ibn al-Hamaq al-Khuza'i. Amr was a Sahabi, companion of Rasulullah, and a close companion of who? Of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And he was very close to Hijr. After Hijr achieved martyrdom and was killed by Muawiyah, they went for Amr. After they killed him, he had his servants with him. After they killed him, they beheaded him and they put his head on a spear and they paraded that head around the Muslim world. That was the first head in Islamic history to be placed on a spear. By who? Committed by Muawiyah. Why does he do this? Why parade a head? And why decapitate and mutilate a head? Amir al-Mu'mineen in his will, in the month of Ramadan, he tells his son Imam al-Hasan, when you kill Abdul Rahman ibn Muljim, when you strike Ibn Muljim, do not mutilate his body. Just strike him once. Because I heard Rasulullah say, do not even mutilate the body of a dog with rabies. A dog with rabies, don't mutilate his body. Muawiyah beheads Amr al-Khuza'i, then parades his head around the Muslim world. Why? To bring fear and terror into the Muslims, to say, listen, if you go up against me, this is what's going to end up happening to you. Ibn Ziyad later on does this as well in Kufa. When Muslim Ibn Aqil is trying to gather support, what does Ibn Ziyad do? Public executions. Downtown Kufa, people are being killed publicly. Why? So if anyone is even thinking about joining Imam al-Hussein, they're going to think twice now. This is a way that tyrants use. Saddam, when he first came into power, there's a famous video, black and white video, put in YouTube when Saddam first came to power. Black and white video, he sits down and then he starts calling people out, anyone that's against him, and they say, take him, and you hear gunshots. Publicly executed in front of the whole of the parliament. Why does he do this? To say, listen, if you go up against me, public execution. That's going to bring fear and terror into people. So the people of Sham, you would think, if now, all of a sudden you go out to the street and you see a head of someone, you'd be shocked. What's going on? Why is there someone's head on a spear? Why were they not shocked? They're used to it. It's become something that's normal. Anyone that's against the caliph, that's what's going to end up happening to them. They were not shocked when they saw the head of the grandson of Rasulullah on a spear. It did not shock them. After 3 days, they enter the palace of Al-La'in Yazid ibn Muawiyah Al-La'in. They bring the head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein towards him. He starts to drink alcohol next to the head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Then he starts to play chess next to the head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. Then he asks for his khayzarana. Khayzarana is a stick that's made out of special wood from a special tree. And he starts to poke the lips of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. The same lips that Rasulullah used to kiss. Starts poking them. In front of who? In front of the sisters of Hussein. In front of the daughters of Hussein. He starts playing with the head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Now when it comes to the different views, the first view of where the burial site is Medina. This is a view of a scholar by the name of Ibn Sa'd from the Ahl al-Sunnah, who is very lenient with who? The Umayyads. He says that Yazid, when he saw the head, he felt sorry for Imam al-Hussein and his family. He returned the head to Medina to be buried next to his mother Fatima al-Zahra. There's that view. Of course, we cannot take it to be a serious or reliable source because Yazid is a fasiq, someone who drinks alcohol, a hypocrite. Why would he care about the head of Abu Abdullah? 2, no one knows where the grave of Fatima al-Zahra is. Therefore, this is in itself, that sentence is wrong, because how can the head be buried next to the mother when no one knows where the mother is buried? A second view is that he left it in Sham. We also disagree with this view because we say after the sermon of Sayeda Zainab alayhi salam, which we looked at in yesterday's lecture, and after the sermon of Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam, Yazid realized that there's going to be a revolution against him. People have realized that he's been lying to them, he's been deceiving them. So he wants to get rid of the Ahlul Bayt and send them home straight away. So he tells them, do you have any requests? Just leave. They say, yes, we want the head of our father and our uncle, so we go back and we bury them. Yet there are some narrations within Shia texts that say the head of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, and they point towards the hadith of the 6th Imam that says when he goes with his companions towards Najaf, he tells them there's a big grave and a small grave. They ask him, what are these graves? He tells them the big grave is the grave of my grandfather Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. And the smaller grave is the grave of the head of my grandfather Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. We find this narration. Yet the majority of scholars say, because of the holiness and the sacredness of Karbala, And because we have such hadith that say the dua is accepted under the dome of who? Of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. Imam al-Hussein is given 3 merits. الشفاء في تربته. The shifa in his turba. Turbat Karbala, khak shifa. It's known as khak shifa. And trust me, I've tried this. My father, my grandfather. I've seen miracles when it comes to khak shifa, but you have to believe. You have to actually believe in this khak shifa. And what? The shifa in his turba, wal dua, and dua is accepted near his grave under his dome. Our scholars point towards the fact that because the dua is accepted under his dome, therefore his head must be there. 1. 2, the fact that we are told Imam al-Sajjad, when he comes back from Sham, he doesn't go straight to Medina. He takes a different route towards where? Karbala. Why does he do this? He doesn't have to. He can go straight to Medina. He goes towards Karbala because why? He wants to bury the heads. That's why Arba'in, we are told, the 40th coming up, is when the head returned to the grave. The head returned to the body. Not just of Imam al-Hussein, of Abu al-Fadl Abbas and the others. They were buried on Arba'in day. So 2 burials took place. Otherwise, why would Imam al-Sajjad reignite the flame in his aunties Bibi Zainab and Kulthum by going back to Karbala? He'd go back to Medina, so they don't have to go and see the scene where the men were killed and butchered, correct? He'd go straight to Medina. He goes back to Karbala to bury the heads. This, and of course, the narration when it comes to Cairo, this is the narration of our brothers Ahl Sunnah. And I, alhamdulillah, I've had the honor of visiting this location, and you feel a sense of serenity and peace when you go, especially if you go to that area where Sayeda Zainab is, because we have a narration that Sayeda Zainab is buried there, and you have Sayeda Nafisa, and alhamdulillah, when you go there, even maybe because it's named after Imam al-Hussein. Why do our Husseyniyas feel sacred and holy? Because they're named after Imam al-Hussein. Imam Barga, why does it feel, when you come there, you feel a sense of serenity in your Husseiniyah, in your mosque? Especially, subhanallah, when I come to this center, I feel this sense of peace when I come to Hyderi. You know that there's people in here that have been crying for Abu Abdullah for many years. There's people in here that have been doing matam for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. The alam of Abbas is in this center. You feel the serenity, the peace in your Husseiniyah, correct? It's like your second home. That's what a center is. That's what a community center is. When you go in there, you feel it's your second home. You don't feel like you're a stranger. So again, when you go to this place in Cairo, you have that sense of feeling that Imam al-Hussein has been mentioned here. But when it comes to the actual burial site of the holy head of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, most reliable narrations indicate that his head was buried with his body in Karbala. But this holy head of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, even though it went through many karamat and many blessings, it also witnessed many trials. It also witnessed, for example, that his sister Zainab was being whipped. Imam al-Hussein had to witness this. If one daughter of Hussein, the head doesn't move. Imagine the head of Imam al-Hussein seeing his sister Bibi Zainab in chains, seeing his son Ali al-Sajjad in that chains known as Jama'ah. Why is it known as Jama'ah? Because the chain wasn't around his arms and feet only, no. Pay attention, please. I want you to look at me. The chain was placed around his neck and his arms in such a way that he had to be like this. One chain from his neck to the back of his hands, going all the way down to his feet. I haven't finished. No. You think that's it? No. That same chain continues to the next person, and the next person, and the next person. They're all in one chain. Why do I mention this? Because if you have a tall person next to a short person, what ends up happening? That short person has to tiptoe. Imagine someone like Bibi Zainab, and next to her someone like Bibi Sakina. And the chain is pulling Bibi Sakina, and she has to tiptoe. Imam al-Hussein's head had to witness all of this. But it also gave them patience seeing the head of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Yet there's the story of the 3, 4, or 5-year-old. The ages either 3, 4, or 5. Either way, it's a young child. Whether they're 3, 4, or 5, still a young, innocent child. This innocent child, I'm guessing, the woman made sure they protect her all the time so she doesn't see the head of her father. It's on a spear. So they made sure that someone's always around her so she doesn't see the head of who? Of her father. I mentioned that I find it difficult reciting the Masa'ib of Bibi Sakina because, alhamdulillah, the last 2 years in Muharram I've been in London. I say alhamdulillah because I've recited Majalis here. Usually I travel. Because of COVID, I couldn't travel. Alhamdulillah, because I could stay with my family. The most difficult period for me is when I leave for those 12, 13 days and recite Majalis, for example, abroad. Not just for me, but for my daughter more. Because she keeps telling me, Baba, why are you leaving me? I have to sit. And now she's 6, but she was 5, 4, 3, when she was even 2 years old. She's always saying, Baba, why are you leaving me? And I would, especially when I'd get on that flight, I'd say, oh, Imam al-Hussein, I ask you through Bibi Sakina to give my daughter patience. Because she'd wake up in the middle of the night. My wife tells me she'd wake up in the middle of the night and ask for me. Those that have fathers, those that have daughters, they would understand that the relationship you have with your daughter, especially at a young age when she first starts school, for example. You know, when she first goes to school, if anyone harms her at school, what does she say? She says, I'm going to wait for Baba. When Baba comes, I'm going to tell him what happened. Bibi Sakina, every time someone would hit her, she'd say, I'm going to wait for my father to return from his journey. I'm going to return for my father to return so I can tell him you hit me. I can tell him you pulled my earrings. These earrings, they were dear to me. They were given by my father. I'm going to wait for my father to come back. Every day she would ask, Amma Zainab, where is my father Hussein? Every night she would ask. Until she was brought to Sham. Now take your hearts to Sham. Now you're ready to go towards Sham. They put her in a kharaba. This area, this prison that they made for them in the suburbs of Sham, of Damascus, known as Kharabatu Sham. They would place them there as prisoners in the middle of the night. One night, as Sakina goes to sleep, every day she remembers her father. Maybe this is probably the first night she actually has some sleep. Yes, she hasn't slept properly. She goes to sleep, she wakes up, she says, I want my father Hussein. She starts to cry, but this time she starts to cry out loudly. It's not her usual cry. Everyone around wakes up, Bibi Zainab, Bibi Kulthum, Bibi Rabab, they all wake up. You know, they remember Imam al-Hussein, they start crying with her. They all start crying. Her auntie Zainab, she comes closer to her. She tells her, well, you know, your father's on a journey. He's returning soon. She says, no, I saw my father in my dream. And he said that he's coming to see me tonight. She looks at her mother, Rabab. She says, Mother Rabab, let's tidy up this area. Why? It's because we have guests coming. Usually when you have guests coming, you want to make sure that your area, your house is clean, yes? She says, Mother Rabab, let's clean up. We have a guest coming tonight to see us. They all start crying more. They start crying loudly. Yazid is in his palace. The cries reach the palace of Yazid. He wakes up, this la'in. He wakes up in the middle of the night. He says, what's this noise? Why are they crying so loudly in the middle of the night while I'm trying to rest? They say to him, it's the daughter of Hussein. She wants her father. He says, take the head of the father. She wants the father, take the head. The head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein was put in a bowl. They put a cover on top of this bowl. They bring this bowl towards Bibi Sakina. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. She hasn't seen her father for over a month. She's used to seeing her father every day. You know when she sees her father usually? When it's time for Salah, Namaz. Where would Imam al-Hussein find Sakina? He'd find her sitting on his prayer mat. She'd go and sit on his prayer mat. She'd fix the prayer mat knowing that her father is coming to pray. Those of you that have daughters, subhanAllah, as soon as they start walking, you see them when you start to pray, they start coming standing next to you, right? Sometimes they even they take the turba away from you. She would be there next to his salah. In his salah time, she hasn't seen her father for a long time. They bring the bowl. It's covered with a cloth. You know what she says? What's shocking? As soon as she sees that bowl, she looks at her auntie Zainab. She says, Amma Zainab, Amma Zainab. I did not ask for any food. I asked to see my father Hussein. They bring this bowl towards Bibi Sakina. Ajarakum Allah, ya mu'mineen, ya mu'minat. And they bring this bowl, they place it in front of Sakina. They remove the cloth. Aywa Husayna. Aywa Ghariba. What does she see? She sees the holy head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. But the holy head of Abu Abdullah is dyed with blood. That's why Imam al-Zaman says, السلام على الشيب الخضيب السلام على الخد التريب. Peace be upon the cheek that struck the dust. She sees the face. She sees the holy grey beard of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein has been stained with the blood. When was it stained with the blood? Let me take you back to Ashura. On the day of Ashura, when Harmala threw the spear into the heart of Imam al-Hussein, what does Imam do? The spear goes into the heart of Imam al-Hussein. It's a three-pronged arrow. It has three edges. In the maqtal, what does the Imam do? The Imam tries to take the spear out from the front. But he can't. Why? Because the arrow has one arrow. Please pay attention to this point. One arrow facing forward. Yet it has three arrows facing backwards. So when the Imam tries to take it out from the front, he can't, because the three arrows pointing backwards are digging into what? The Imam alayhi salam's chest. What does the Imam do? The Imam puts his hand the Imam puts his hand behind. Then he pulls the arrow from the back. Then blood gushes out of his chest. He takes the holy blood in his hands. What does he do with the blood? He places it on his face. Then he says, هَكَذَا أَلْقَى جَدِّي رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. This is how I will meet my grandfather, Rasulullah. That same blood from the chest of Abu Abdullah has stained his grey beard. Sakina starts rubbing the blood off the face of her father. She's been waiting for a whole month. Why? She wants to tell him, Father, look at my shoulders. Father, look at my back. Look at my hands. Father, look at the chains around my arms. She wants to show what? Her pain. She wants to go through. She wants to open her heart to her father. She forgets about her pain. What does she say? She says, Father, Father, who cut your head? Father, Father, Abata, who stained your grey beard with blood? Abata, من الذي أيتمني على صغر سني? Father, Aba Abdullah, who has made me an orphan. Father, Aba Abdullah, why is your forehead cut? From what? From that stone that was thrown onto the forehead of Aba Abdullah. Then she hugs the head of her father. She embraces that head. She's crying loudly. Suddenly her cries stop. Silence in the room, in the kharaba. The next voice that is heard is the voice of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, when he stands up and he says, Inna lillah wa Zainab, she looks at Imam al-Sajjad. Why? Because Zainab, on the night of Ashura, Imam al-Hussein told her something. He said, Zainab, I have an amana for you. What's your amana? My amana is my daughters, especially Sakina. Look after her. Zainab looks at Imam al-Sajjad. Oh, Ali ibn al-Hussein, why do you say, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un? Imam al-Sajjad responds by saying, Amma Zainab, remove my sister Sakina from the head of my father, for her soul has departed from her body. Let's go with the head of Abu Abdullah. When the head returns to Karbala, Zainab comes back, they bury the head. Zainab says, Aba Abdullah, I've returned with your head to be buried next to your body. But Aba Abdullah, I have one... Abu Abdullah, please excuse me and forgive me for one of your daughters I had to bury in Sham. أيوا حسين أيوا غريبا يا رب الحسين بحق الحسين اشفي صدر الحسين بظهور الحجة. مأتم الحسين. يا حسين يا حسين.
بانو عابد کو بتلا رہی ہے میری سکینہ کو نیند آ رہی ہے بانو عابد کو بتلا رہی ہے میری سکینہ کو نیند آ رہی ہے میری سکینہ کو نیند آ رہی ہے کہہ دو یا عابد کو بتلا رہی ہے میری سکینہ کو نیند آ 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 رہی ہے میری س آہستہ آئے کہہ دو پرندوں سے گل نہ مچائے کہہ دو اندھیروں سے واپس نہ جائے کہہ دو اندھیروں سے واپس نہ جائے جاگی ہوئی چین کچھ پا رہی ہے میری سکینہ کو نیند آ رہی ہے میری سکینہ کو نیند آ رہی ہے یہ شام غریبا کی جاگی ہوئی ہے تماچوں کے در سے نہیں سو سکی ہے ذرا پھر گلے سے رسن جو کھلی ہے سکون سے جو اب سانس لے پا رہی ہے سکون سے جو اب سانس لے پا رہی ہے میری سکینہ کو نیند آ رہی ہے میری سکینہ کو نیند آ رہی ہے شام کی زندان میں قبر سے روتی ہوئی او سکینہ کی یہی آس دادے آج بھی میرے زوارو آنکھیں سنو تم میری کہانی 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 میرے بابا تے خلد کے مالک جس کے در پر قرآن اترا تھا اس کی پوشاکیں آئی جنت سے ان کے صدقے سے یہ جہان بنا مشکلیں جب پڑی تھی فطر سے پر مشکلیں جب پڑی تھی فطر سے پر اس کا ضامن بنا میرا بابا ہائے سکینہ میرے زوارو آ کے سنو تم میری کہانی میرے زوارو آ کے سنو تم میری کہانی میری دادی تھی فاطمہ زہرا، اصل میں جو تھی آیت تطہیر. میرا دادا تا حیدر کرار ہے بری جن کی دین میں توقیر. میرا بھائی کا تھا یہی پہ کر،
میرا بھائی کا تھا یہی پہ کر،
وہ تھا بالکل رسول کی تصویر. آئے سکینہ
میرے زوارو آ کے سنو تم
میری کہانی، میرے زوارو آ کے سنو تم
میری کہانی.
ایک دن گھر سے ہم ہوئے رخصت، راہ میں ایک مزاحمت آئی. پہنچے ہم کربلا کے میدان میں، ساتویں دن سے بند تھا پانی. ظالموں سب جمع ہوئے بن میں،
ظالموں سب جمع ہوئے
بن میں، جنگ کی کر رہے تھے تیاری.
آئے سکینہ میرے زوارو آ کے سنو تم میری کہانی.
میرے زوارو
آ کے سنو تم میری کہانی.
نکل عاشور یوم کا سورج، چمکی ظالم کی فوج کی تلوار. ہائے قاسم کا تن ہوئے ٹکڑے، میرے اکبر کا تھا کلیجہ پار. میرے اصغر کی چھت گئی گردن،
میرے اصغر کہیں گئی
گردن. خون کو عرض نے کیا انکار.
آئے سکینہ میرے زوارو آ کے سنو تم میری کہانی.
میرے زوارو
آ کے سنو تم میری کہانی.
پیاس میری بوجھانے کو امو نکلے مشکیزہ اور علم لے کر. مشک کو بھر کے لوٹ آتا تھا، پر آنکھوں نے دیکھا یہ منظر. دونوں بازو کٹے بہا پانی، دونوں بازو
کٹے بہا پانی.
اور نہ آیا کبھی بھی نے حیدر.
آئے سکینہ میرے زوارو آ کے سنو تم میری کہانی. میرے زوارو آ کے سنو تم میری کہانی.
میں نے اصغر کے بعد یہ دیکھا، بابا میدان میں رہ گئے تنہا. ان پہ ہر ایک طرف سے تھا حملہ، تن تو زخموں سے چور چور ہوا. شمر سینے پہ بیٹی کے اپنا، شمر سینے پہ بیٹ کے اپنا. خون خنجر سے کاٹا پیاسا گلا.
آئے سکینہ میرے زوارو آ کے سنو تم میری کہانی. میرے زوارو آ کے سنو تم میری کہانی.
ہم غریبوں پہ کیسی رات آئی، چل گئے خیمے چھن گئی چادر. ڈھونڈتی تھی میرن میں بابا کو، اس اندھیرے میں ہائے رو رو کر. ایک لاش سے یہ صدا آئی، ایک لاش
سے یہ صدائی،
آؤ سوچا سکینہ سینے پر،
آئے سکینہ میرے زوارو، آ کے سنو تم میری کہانی، میرے زوارو آ کے سنو تم میری کہانی، میرے زوارو آ کے سنو تم میری کہانی۔
نکلے عاشور یوم کا سورج، چمکی ظالم کی فوج کی تلوار، ہائے قاسم کا تن ہوئے ٹکڑے، میرے اکبر کا تھا کلیجہ پار، میرے اصغر کی چھت گئی گردن، میرا اصغر کی چھت گئی گردن، خون کو عرض نے کیا انکار،
آئے سکینہ میرے زوارو آ کے سنو تم میری کہانی، میرے زوارو آ کے سنو تم میری کہانی۔
میری دادی تھی فاطمہ زہرا، اصل میں جو تھی آیت تطہیر، میرا دادا تھا حیدر کرار، ہے بری جن کی دین میں توقیر، میرا بھائی کا تھا یہی پیکر، میرا بھائی کا تھا یہی پیکر، وہ تھا بالکل رسول کی تصویر،
آئے سکینہ میرے زوارو آ کے سنو تم میری کہانی، میرے زوارو آ کے سنو تم میری کہانی۔
تمام عالم میں آج ماتم،
تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے۔ سیاہ کپڑے سیاہ چادر، غموں کی گرد و غبار سر پر، سیاہ کپڑے سیاہ چادر، غموں کی گرد و غبار سر پر، ہے سوگواروں کے اشک جاری، کہ سوگواروں کے اشک جاری، کہ ثانی زہرا بے ردا ہے، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے۔ نہ چشم پر نام ہو کیوں سوالی، جلوس ہے ذوالجناح خالی، نہ چشم پر نام ہو کیوں سوالی، جلوس ہے ذوالجناح خالی، کہ میرا دلدل سوار مولا، کہ میرا دلدل سوار مولا، زمین کربل میں سو رہا ہے، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے۔ علم مشق سکینہ دیکھو تو مومنو بس یہ کہہ کے رو لو، علم مشق سکینہ دیکھو تو مومنو بس یہ کہہ کے رو لو، چچا بھتیجی میں کیا ہے نسبت، چچا بھتیجی میں کیا ہے نسبت، وفائے عباس کیا وفا ہے، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے۔ حسین پیری میں دل سنبھالے کہ دل سے الجھی سینہ نکالے، حسین پیری میں دل سنبھالے کہ دل سے الجھی سینہ نکالے، جوان میرا لہو میں ڈوبا، جوان میرا لہو میں ڈوبا، زمین پہ ایری رگڑ رہا ہے، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے۔ نہ مارے برچی نہ بیجوے پر ابھی ہوئے ہیں جوان اکبر، نہ مارے برچی دل نبی پر ابھی ہوئے ہیں جوان اکبر، یہ قتل جس کو تو کر رہا ہے، یہ قتل جس کو تو کر رہا ہے، یہی تو ہم شکل مصطفیٰ ہے، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے۔ مدینے والوں خاموش رہنا، غریب زینب سے کچھ نہ کہنا، مدینے والوں خاموش رہنا، غریب زینب سے کچھ نہ کہنا، بسا ہوا گھر جو لے گئی تھی، بسا ہوا گھر جو لے گئی تھی، وہ کربلا میں اجڑ گیا ہے، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، تمام عالم میں آج ماتم، حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے۔ یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین، ہائے سکینہ، ہائے سکینہ، ہائے سکینہ، ہائے غریبی، ہائے مظلومی، ہائے سکینہ، ہائے سکینہ، محمد و آل محمد صلوات۔
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين السلام عليك يا علي المرتضى السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين وأولاد الحسين وأصحاب الحسين خصوصا سيدي ومولاي أبا الفضل العباس باب الحوائج وأختك زينب الكبرى أم المصائب جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا مولا وابن مولا السلام عليك يا غريب الغربى وبعيد المدى السلطان أبا الحسن مولانا علي بن موسى الرضا كن شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان السلام السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان، أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسحر الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك، واجعلنا من أنصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم كل وليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.